He flirted with a 7-foot alien goddess. Now she'd chosen him as her husband. Far beyond the outer edge of known space, a small human repair ship drifted between silent stars. Its hull was old, scratched and humming with weak engines. Inside, Ethan Cole, a human engineer, was trying to fix a broken communication relay. His hands were greasy, his uniform half unzipped, and his face tired from days without proper sleep. Another glamorous day in space, he muttered with a small laugh. His only company was his ship's AI, a calm female voice named Ivy. "Captain Cole, your humor is 13% less effective when you haven't slept," Ivy said softly. Ethan smirked. "You've been tracking my jokes again." "Huh." "Of course," Ivy replied. "It's my job to make sure you don't die of boredom." He looked out the window. At the Black Sea of Stars, he had been working near the border of the Valthar Dominion, a massive alien empire that humans usually avoided. But today, something strange filled the screen. A faint distress signal blinked, pulsing in an alien code. "Valthar transmission," Ivy said. "Should I block it?" Ethan hesitated. He knew the Valthar were dangerous, tall warrior beings who ruled half the galaxy with iron hands. But curiosity was his weakness. "Play it," he said. Static filled the room. Then a low, broken female voice echoed through the speakers. It wasn't just a cry for help, it was a command, powerful and cold. "To any who dare respond, you will answer to me. General Syraxa of the Valthar." Ethan froze. He had heard that name before. Whispered in military stories, General Syraxa, the 7-foot war goddess of the Valthar, a living legend. Some said she destroyed entire fleets with her own hands. Others said she never showed mercy. Ethan chuckled nervously. "Well, Ivy, that's one lady I shouldn't flirt with." "Agreed," Ivy said quickly. "For once I recommend silence." But Ethan, being Ethan, leaned back in his chair and grinned. "Still, imagine her face if I sent a 'Hey beautiful, need a hand' message," he joked. "I am logging that as a terrible idea," Ivy replied. Minutes later, the radar beeped sharply. Something massive had entered local space. "Ivy," Ethan whispered. "Tell me that's a glitch." "It's not," she replied, her voice tense. "Incoming vessel," Valthar signature confirmed. "Class, flagship." The lights flickered. Outside, through the viewing glass, a shadow grew. Then the stars disappeared behind the enormous silver hull of an alien warship, glowing with runes of blue energy. It was so large it blocked out an entire section of space. Ethan's small ship shook as the Valthar vessel locked onto him with a tractor beam. "Great," he sighed, gripping his seat. "Guess the flirting idea didn't go over well." In a deep metallic tone, the comms came alive. "Human vessel," a voice thundered. "You have answered the call of General Syraxa. Prepare for boarding." Ethan stood frozen. He was just a repair engineer, not a soldier, not a hero. But something inside him whispered to stay calm. A bright blue beam of light surrounded his ship. Moments later, a loud thud echoed from outside. The airlock door hissed open and heavy footsteps followed. The metallic echo grew louder until she appeared. General Syraxa, 7 feet tall, clad in radiant black armor that shimmered like liquid metal. Her eyes glowed gold. Her face was both fierce and strangely beautiful. Long braids of silver hair fell across her shoulders. Her presence filled the room with a quiet, heavy power. Ethan swallowed hard. He felt small, like a child before a storm. Still, his mouth moved before his brain could stop it. Hey there," he said with a shaky grin. "Need a mechanic? Or just came by to intimidate small ships?" The soldiers behind her gasped in shock. No one ever spoke to the war goddess like that. But Syraxa's lips curved slightly, a dangerous, amused smile. Her voice was deep and smooth. "You have courage. Or stupidity." Ethan shrugged. "Usually both." For a second, silence filled the air, then she laughed, a low, rolling sound that made the walls vibrate. "I like your spirit, human," she said, stepping closer. "But you are standing in Valthar space, and by our law, that makes you my prisoner." Ethan's smile faded. "Prisoner, huh? Can we go with guest? It sounds friendlier." Her golden eyes narrowed. "Do you bargain with a goddess only when she's this tall?" he muttered under his breath. She tilted her head, curious. "You mock death," she said, almost impressed. "Tell me your name before I decide your fate." "Ethan Cole," he replied, trying to sound brave. Syraxa looked at him as if studying a puzzle. Then she gave a small nod. "Very well, Ethan Cole," she said. You will come with me. Two guards moved forward, but Syraxa raised her hand, stopping them. He walks beside me, she ordered. Ethan blinked. Beside you, not behind. Yes, she said. You are bold enough to speak freely, so you will face what that boldness brings. As they walked down the bright corridors of the alien flagship, Ethan looked around in awe. Every wall glowed with energy veins, and tall alien warriors bowed when Syraxa passed. He whispered to himself, Okay, Ethan. You really did it this time. Syraxa glanced at him, her eyes sharp yet curious. You are not afraid, she said. Oh, I'm terrified, he admitted. I just hide it well. Syraxa's lips curved again. Good. Fear is boring. The lift doors opened to a vast hall filled with alien banners and hovering thrones. At the center stood a massive symbol, the mark of the Valthar goddess of war. Syraxa turned to him and said, From this moment, human, your life belongs to me. Ethan looked up at her, his heart pounding. He had no idea that one small joke would change the fate of two worlds. And before we go deeper into this strange and powerful story, if you enjoy sci-fi tales full of mystery, emotion, and impossible love, make sure to subscribe to this channel and join the adventure, because things are about to get even more dangerous. The alien hall shimmered with a cold blue light. The air smelled like metal and fire. Ethan stood in front of 1,000 glowing eyes, Valthar warriors towering over him, each one built like living armor. Their spears glowed with plasma, and their faces were carved with strange symbols, yet all of them bowed when General Syraxa raised her hand. Her voice echoed like thunder, powerful and sharp. This human, she said, pointing at Ethan, answered my call without fear. He mocked me to my face, and still stands breathing. Tell me, Valthar, have you ever seen such foolishness? The crowd hissed and murmured. Ethan tried to smile, but his throat felt dry. He whispered to himself, Maybe I should have just stayed home today. Syraxa heard him, her golden eyes gleaming with amusement. You have a strange courage, she said, and I do not know if it is bravery or madness. Then she stepped down from the dais and circled him slowly. Her armor moved like living light, each motion graceful yet deadly. Ethan could feel the heat of her presence as she walked behind him. You spoke freely to me, she said softly, as if I were one of your kind. No fear, no worship, only mockery. He swallowed hard. That's just how humans talk. Then humans are either bold or foolish, she whispered near his ear. Maybe both, he said again, trying to hide his shaking hands. The hall fell silent. Then Syraxa turned to her guards. Prepare the trials, she commanded. The human will face the challenge of worth. Ethan blinked. Wait, the what now? Her smile widened. A test to see if you are truly what your tongue claims, unafraid of me. He stepped back. And if I fail, she leaned close, her eyes glowing brighter, then I will crush you. Ethan exhaled slowly. Well, that's motivating. Moments later, two warriors led him to a vast circular arena deep inside the ship. The walls were covered with glowing alien symbols, and a crowd gathered above, cheering like thunder. Syraxa stood on a platform above, her arms crossed, watching. This test, she announced, has 3 parts: strength, mind, and heart. Win them, and I will let you live. Lose, and your body will float among the stars. Ethan rubbed the back of his neck, whispering, well, great, no pressure. The first challenge began. A giant Valthar warrior entered the ring. His skin metallic blue, his body twice Ethan's size, he roared. The sound shaking the ground, Ethan stared. Oh, fantastic. It's Space Hulk versus average mechanic, the alien charged. Ethan dove to the side, barely avoiding a glowing blade. He rolled, grabbed a fallen power cable, and jammed it into a puddle of liquid fuel. A burst of sparks exploded upward. The warrior slipped, his armor crackling with electricity. Ethan grinned. See? Who needs muscles when you've got brains? The crowd gasped. Syraxa tilted her head slightly, her eyes narrowing. She looked impressed, but not enough. Round 1, she said softly. Passed. The second challenge began. A dozen holographic enemies appeared around him, illusions designed to test his mind. They whispered lies, spoken voices of his past. One took the shape of his sister, another of a soldier he once saw die. Ethan clenched his fists, shaking his head. You're not real, he said. You're just code. The illusions attacked with screams. He closed his eyes and listened, not to their words, but to the rhythm of the arena. Then he noticed. The holograms flickered each time they moved. He timed their steps, ducked, rolled, and struck through the flickers. One by one, they vanished in bursts of light. When the last illusion faded, he stood tall, panting. The crowd was silent, then erupted in awe. Syraxa's lips parted slightly, a look of wonder breaking through her hard shell. "Interesting," she said quietly. "He adapts quickly, like a predator." But then came the final trial, the test of the heart, she said. Her voice low and serious. Ethan frowned. "What's that supposed to mean?" Syraxa motioned, and the arena floor transformed. A holographic scene appeared, a battlefield covered in smoke and fire. Human soldiers running, dying, calling for help. And in the center, a hologram of a young girl, crying for her brother. Ethan froze. It looked exactly like his sister, Leah, the one he lost years ago in a mining accident. His hands trembled. "Ivy," he whispered. Forgetting she wasn't there, the image cried again. "Help me, Ethan." Syraxa watched from above, her face unreadable. "Will you chase a ghost," she said, "or face reality?" Tears burned Ethan's eyes. He walked slowly toward the hologram, reaching out. "I know you're not real," he said softly, "but I can't ignore you." He stepped through the illusion, breaking it completely. The hologram dissolved, and the arena fell silent again. Syraxa stood motionless. She had seen many warriors take this test. None had chosen compassion over victory. Her soldiers whispered among themselves, confused. "Why did he do that?" one said. "It was a trick." Syraxa's voice silenced them all. "Because," she said slowly, "he has what most of us lost, a heart." She descended into the arena, her steps echoing like thunder. Ethan looked up at her, still breathing hard. She stopped inches from him, towering over his small human frame. "You are strange, Ethan Cole," she said. "You fight like prey but think like a hunter. You bleed for ghosts, yet stand against gods." He smiled weakly. "I get that a lot." Syraxa looked at him for a long moment, then turned to her soldiers. "This human," she said, "is not weak. From now on, he will not be treated as a prisoner." The warriors gasped. "But my general," one protested. "He insulted you, he—" "Enough," Syraxa roared, her voice shaking the hall. "He has earned my interest." Then she turned back to Ethan, her gaze softer but still fierce. "Your trials are over," she said quietly. "But your real challenge begins now." Ethan frowned. "What's that supposed to mean?" She leaned closer, her golden eyes glowing like suns. "It means, human," she whispered. "You now belong to me." The crowd fell silent. Even Ethan didn't speak, his heart thundering in his chest. He didn't yet understand that what she said wasn't a threat. It was a claim, and in the Valthar Empire, when a war goddess claims something, it becomes destiny. The alien crowd still murmured in disbelief. General Syraxa had just declared a human her personal interest. To the Valthar, that was not just rare, it was unthinkable. Ethan Cole stood in the center of the massive arena, his clothes torn, his skin bruised, his heart racing. He didn't know if he should thank her or start running. Syraxa turned, her long braids moving like silver fire behind her armor. She raised one hand and the hall fell silent. "Take him to my command deck," she ordered, her voice cold but steady. "No one touches him, no one speaks to him, unless I allow it." Her soldiers bowed instantly, obeying without question. Ethan whispered under his breath, "Yeah, this totally doesn't sound like captivity at all." 2 armored guards walked him through the glowing corridors of the flagship. Every alien they passed stared in silence, some with curiosity, others with pure hatred. The Valthar were proud ancient warriors, and now, their goddess had taken interest in a small, fragile human. To them, it was almost a crime. When they reached the upper deck, Ethan saw the alien stars from the massive glass dome above. Ships moved in formation outside, sleek and silent like predators hunting in the dark. Syraxa stood there overlooking the void, her armor faintly glowing with each heartbeat. When she spoke, her voice was softer than before. "You are still alive, human," she said. "That surprises me." Ethan smiled faintly. "I'm full of surprises." Her golden eyes shifted toward him. "So I see," she motioned him forward. "Come closer, do not tremble." "I will not kill you, not yet," she said with a half smile. "I wasn't trembling," Ethan replied quickly. "Just stretching my legs." Syraxa raised a brow. "You are either the bravest fool I have ever met, or the most foolish brave man? Can I be both, he said. That made her laugh again, the sound deep and powerful like thunder echoing through the metal walls. For a moment, something changed between them. The tension in the air softened. Replaced by a spark of strange amusement, Syraxa turned away, walking toward a massive table covered with holographic stars and glowing battle maps. Her voice grew thoughtful. My people believe humans are weak, she said. But you do not break easily. Ethan shrugged. We're good at pretending we're fine. She looked at him sharply. Pretending? Yeah, he said quietly. Sometimes courage is just fear that's too stubborn to give up. Syraxa stared at him for a long moment. Her eyes, sharp as blades, softened almost. Human, then suddenly her tone shifted again. Perhaps I misjudged your kind, she said. But words mean nothing without proof. She raised her hand and a glowing symbol appeared in midair. I challenge you again, human, she said. This time not for survival, but for truth. Ethan blinked. What does that mean? Syraxa's voice lowered. You will learn our ways. Live among my warriors and earn your place. Or die trying. Over the next few days, Ethan was thrown into a world beyond anything he had ever known. He trained with Valthar soldiers in massive halls of silver stone. He learned to fight with their energy staffs, long, curved weapons that responded to touch and emotion. Each session ended with bruises, burns, and a few sarcastic comments. Still alive, human, one soldier growled. Barely, Ethan replied. But it's progress. Syraxa often watched from a distance. She never spoke during his training, but her eyes followed every move he made. Sometimes she looked impressed, sometimes amused, and sometimes conflicted. At night, Ethan sat alone in a chamber with strange blue lights floating above him. He would talk to Ivy, his ship's AI, now linked remotely through a communicator. Ivy, he whispered. Remind me why I didn't stay home. Her digital voice replied, because, Captain. You never could resist a challenge, he sighed. Yeah. And now I'm property of a 7-foot alien war goddess. Correction, Ivy said dryly. You are her claimed interest. Thanks. That makes it so much better, Ethan muttered. The next morning, Syraxa summoned him to the war hall again. When he entered, she was in full armor, radiant. Terrifying, magnificent, she turned to him. Today, human, we test loyalty. Ethan frowned. Loyalty to what? To me, she said simply. He blinked. You want me to swear loyalty? Her eyes glowed like suns. No, I want you to prove it. She motioned toward 2 captured aliens chained at the center of the hall. They were enemies of the Valthar, small reptilian beings shivering in fear. Syraxa held out a plasma dagger. Kill them, she said, and you will be honored among my warriors. Ethan stared at the trembling prisoners. His heartbeat pounded like thunder in his ears. He knew it was a test, not of skill, but of soul. I can't, he said finally. They're defenseless. The room went silent. Every Valthar in the hall turned toward him. Shocked, Syraxa's expression hardened. You disobey me, she said. Her voice suddenly cold. Ethan met her gaze. I'm not one of your soldiers. She stepped closer, her shadow covering him completely. You would defy me, knowing I could end your life in a breath. Yes, he said quietly. Because if I did that, I wouldn't be me anymore. The silence stretched for a long moment. Then Syraxa's eyes flickered, not with anger, but something deeper. She turned away and said softly, Release the prisoners. The guards hesitated. Shocked. Did you not hear me? She thundered. Release them. They obeyed immediately. Ethan looked at her, unsure what just happened. Syraxa faced him again. You are a strange creature. Ethan Cole, she said quietly. You refuse power, and yet you have it. He smiled faintly. Guess humans are complicated. She tilted her head. Perhaps that is why you interest me. Then she leaned closer, her voice low enough that only he could hear. Do not mistake my mercy for weakness, she whispered. You may have earned my curiosity, but you have not yet earned my heart. As she walked away, her warriors whispered behind her. None of them understood why their goddess spared the human again. But deep inside her armored chest, Syraxa felt something she hadn't felt in centuries, a spark she couldn't name. And for the first time, she began to wonder if this fragile human might be the one who would change everything. That night, in his small chamber, Ethan stared out at the alien stars again. He touched the small human pendant hanging from his neck, the only thing left from home. He whispered, "What are you doing, Ethan?" But in his heart, he already knew the games had begun, and he was no longer playing to survive. He was playing to understand her, and somewhere deep down, the war goddess was playing the same game too. Days turned into cycles aboard the Valthar flagship. The stars outside shifted slowly as the ship drifted between nebula clouds that glowed like sleeping fire. Ethan Cole had stopped feeling like a prisoner, yet he was never truly free. Every corridor whispered his name. Every soldier watched him, some with suspicion, others with quiet curiosity. But one pair of golden eyes watched him more than all the rest. General Syraxa, she had become unpredictable, sometimes cold as iron, sometimes strangely gentle. One moment she would scold him for defiance. The next she would share a silent meal beside him without a word. Her moods were like the storms that rolled over her homeworld. Fierce, quick, and beautiful. Ethan never knew which version of her he would face, and yet he found himself wanting to see her every day. One night, while Ethan worked on repairing a damaged drone in the ship's hangar, the lights dimmed suddenly. An alarm flashed red. Echoing across the hall, he looked up. What now? From the doorway, Syraxa appeared, her armor half sealed, sparks dancing on her shoulder plate. "Enemy shadows," she said. "Pirates from the rift." Her voice was calm, but her eyes burned like suns. She walked past him toward the launch bay, but stopped when she noticed the drone parts scattered on the floor. "You build machines to survive," she said. "But do you know how to fight when the machines fail?" Ethan grinned faintly. "Guess we're about to find out." Moments later, the ship shook violently. Sirens wailed, walls trembled, and a deafening roar filled the air. Valthar warriors rushed through the halls, their armor glowing as they prepared for battle. Syraxa turned to Ethan. "Stay here," she commanded. "Not a chance," he replied, grabbing a plasma wrench from the table. She glared. "You defy me again," he shrugged. "That's kind of my thing." Before she could argue, the hull exploded on the far side of the hangar. Flames burst in, and shadowy figures swarmed through the breach. Pirates, savage and fast. Syraxa leapt forward like lightning, her blade slicing through them with terrifying grace. Ethan ducked behind a console, welding a loose door shut to block the second wave. When a pirate crept up behind him, Syraxa's spear flew past his shoulder. Piercing the attacker clean through, Ethan turned, wide-eyed. "You're welcome," she said with a smirk. He nodded. "Remind me to never make you angry." After several brutal minutes, the enemy fled, leaving smoke and silence behind. Syraxa stood tall, her armor scorched and bleeding from a long cut across her arm. Ethan rushed to her side. "You're hurt." "It is nothing," she said, trying to pull away. "Yeah, right," he muttered, pulling a med kit from the wall. She glared but didn't stop him as he cleaned the wound. She winced slightly but said nothing. Her blood shimmered blue under the lights, strange and beautiful. For a long moment neither spoke, then she whispered, "You risked your life for me." He looked up. "You risked yours first." A quiet tension filled the space between them, thick as gravity. Her hand brushed his for half a second, then pulled away later. She ordered the hall cleared of soldiers but told Ethan to stay. The room was lit only by the faint glow of starlight from the viewport. She removed her armor piece by piece, the sound of metal echoing softly beneath it. Her skin bore long silver scars that glowed faintly like lightning trapped under glass. Ethan looked away, embarrassed, she noticed, and her voice softened. "You do not have to avert your eyes, human," she said. "These marks are proof that I still live." He glanced at her again, quietly. "They're not marks of pain," he said. "They're medals of survival." Syraxa tilted her head slightly, confused but thoughtful. "Humans," she said almost to herself. "You speak weakness and call it strength." "Maybe because we learned both come from the same place," he replied. She sat beside him, closer than ever before. "Do you know what the Valthar fear the most?" she asked. He shook his head. "Bonding," she whispered. "It is the connection of spirits, when two hearts share one energy. One fate," Ethan blinked. "Sounds kind of intense." "It is forbidden between species," she said. "It can destroy both if the balance is wrong." Her eyes lingered on him, searching his face for something she couldn't name. He swallowed, unsure how to respond. "So why tell me?" he asked quietly. "Because," she said slowly, "I felt it when you touched me in the arena." Ethan froze. Syraxa continued, her voice trembling slightly. It should not be possible, yet it is there, a pulse. Faint but real, silence stretched between them, filled only by the soft hum of the ship's engines. Ethan finally spoke. Then maybe it's not something to fear. Her eyes darkened. You do not understand. If the bond grows, it will change us both. Change isn't always bad, he said softly. She looked away, standing abruptly, the golden light in her eyes flickering. You speak like a child of chaos, she said, but you do not know what it costs. Then, without warning, she turned and walked out, leaving him alone with the echo of her words. That night, Syraxa stood alone in her quarters, her hands trembling slightly. The mark on her wrist, the ancient Valthar sigil that measured one's life force, glowed faintly blue. It pulsed in rhythm. The warship of the Valthar floated in silence above a dying red star. Inside its shining corridors, tension shimmered like lightning trapped in glass. For days, Ethan Cole had trained, fought, and argued beside General Syraxa. The once terrifying war goddess now spoke to him not as a prisoner, but as an equal, or something dangerously close to it. He didn't understand how it happened. One moment he was her challenge, her experiment, and now he found himself sharing quiet meals in her private quarters, listening to her stories of endless wars, of lost soldiers, and of a loneliness that stretched across centuries. Syraxa had never been seen unarmored by her crew, yet tonight she removed her warplate underneath. She looked less like a goddess and more like a woman, still tall, still powerful but human in her silence. Her skin glowed faintly blue in the dim light, scars like silver threads tracing her arms. Ethan looked at her and for the first time saw not the legend, but the pain. You hide your sadness behind command, he said softly. Syraxa's golden eyes flickered. And you hide your fear behind jokes, she replied. He smiled, guilty. They sat in silence for a moment, the hum of the ship their only witness. Do you ever wonder, Ethan asked, what life would be like if you weren't a warrior? Syraxa looked out the window, where the stars burned cold and distant. No, she said quietly, because the stars would not allow me peace. Then, suddenly an alarm blared through the room. The lights turned red and the ship trembled. Enemy fleet detected. Ivy's distant human voice echoed through Ethan's comm device. It's a human task force, Ethan. They've found you. Syraxa stood immediately, her armor forming around her in seconds. So, she said darkly, your people come to rescue you. Ethan's heart raced. No, Syraxa, it's not like that. But it was too late. Outside the viewport, dozens of human warships appeared, guns glowing with blue energy. Syraxa's fleet prepared for battle, her soldiers shouting war cries that shook the ship. Ethan grabbed her arm. Wait, you don't have to fight them. They're just scared. Syraxa's voice turned sharp. They entered my territory armed, human. Fear is no excuse for trespass. She pulled away and strode toward the command deck, her voice booming. Arm the fleet. Prepare to strike. Ethan followed, shouting. Don't do this, please. She turned on him, her golden eyes burning like suns. You would defend those who would kill you, she hissed. They're my people, he said. But you're... He stopped, unsure what word to use. Syraxa's voice softened dangerously. Say it, human. Ethan's throat tightened. You're my friend. The room fell silent. Her soldiers froze, confused by the word. Syraxa stared at him for a long moment. In Valthar language, there was no word for friend, only ally or possession. But when she looked into his eyes, she understood. Slowly, she lowered her weapon. The human fleet sent a message. A transmission filled the command hall. This is Admiral Rhodes of the United Terran Alliance, the voice said. Release the human engineer immediately, or we will open fire. Syraxa's jaw tightened. Ethan looked between her and the message, panic rising in his chest. Please, he said, let me talk to them. I can stop this. Syraxa hesitated, then nodded once. He stepped to the console and activated the comm link. This is Ethan Cole, he said, his voice trembling. I'm alive. And I'm fine. Don't fire. There was silence for a moment, then the Admiral's voice returned. Harsh and cold. Son, step away from that alien. You don't know what she's done. Ethan looked at Syraxa, who stood silently beside him. No, sir, he said firmly. I know exactly what she's done. She saved me. Gasps filled the hall. Syraxa turned to him sharply, her expression unreadable. The Admiral's voice grew angrier. You've been manipulated. She's using you. Ethan's heart pounded. You're wrong. She's not the monster we think she is, Syraxa's soldiers whispered among themselves. Their goddess, defended by a human. To them it was both madness and miracle. The admiral's voice returned. Then you leave us no choice. Outside, the human fleet fired. Blue beams cut across space. Striking Syraxa's flagship, the ship shook violently. Alarms screaming through the halls, Syraxa shouted commands. Her soldiers rushing to battle stations. Ethan stumbled beside her, smoke and fire filling the air. You see, she said bitterly, your people bring only destruction. Ethan grabbed her arm. And what are you bringing, Syraxa? Peace, she glared at him. Then looked out the window, her eyes full of conflict. Outside, her ships began returning fire. The stars burned bright with chaos. Ethan's communicator crackled. Ivy's voice returned. Ethan, if you stay on that ship, you'll die. He closed his eyes. Then so be it. He looked at Syraxa. I'm not leaving, she turned slowly, staring down at him. You would die for me, she asked. He met her gaze without flinching. I'd rather die beside you than live knowing I ran. For a long, silent moment, neither of them spoke. Then without warning, Syraxa touched her chest plate, activating a glowing sigil. Every soldier in the hall froze. Ethan blinked. What did you just do? She stepped closer, her voice steady but low. In Valthar law, she said, this mark means I have made my claim. Claim, he repeated. What claim? She looked down at him. Eyes blazing, the claim of union, she said. I have chosen you as my bondmate, Ethan's breath caught. Around them, the entire crew dropped to one knee in shock. In Valthar culture, the claim was sacred. It could not be undone. Not even by death, Ethan stumbled back. Syraxa, you can't be serious. Her voice was calm, but her eyes trembled with something fierce and vulnerable. I am the war goddess of the Valthar, Ethan Cole, she said. And I have claimed empires, conquered worlds, destroyed kings, but never, she whispered, have I found one who would stand before me without fear. And for that, you are mine. The ship rocked again as another blast hit. Ethan's heart pounded, the sound drowning out the chaos around him. He wanted to argue, to deny, to escape. But he couldn't because deep down he knew. He was already hers, not by law, not by force, but by something older and stronger. The strange pull between a fragile man and a broken goddess. Outside, the battle raged on. Inside, the war goddess and the human stood locked in silence. And somewhere in the darkness between stars, destiny itself shifted, because a human had just become the chosen mate of a god. And nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same again. The news spread across the galaxy faster than light. One moment it was just a battle near the Red Star. The next, every network, every fleet, every empire whispered the same impossible words. The war goddess of the Valthar has claimed a human mate. Admiral Rhodes stood on the bridge of the Terran flagship, staring at the report in disbelief. Say that again, he demanded. The officer swallowed hard. Sir, the alien general activated the claim sigil. It's official under their law. The admiral slammed his fist on the console. No, that's impossible. No human could survive such a bond. But deep down, he knew. Ethan Cole was never ordinary. Meanwhile, on the Valthar flagship, silence ruled. The great warriors who once cheered Syraxa's name now knelt in uneasy confusion. To them, the claim was sacred, divine, something only shared between equals of power, and yet their goddess had chosen a human. Ethan stood in the center of the command hall. He could still feel the warmth of Syraxa's glowing sigil on his chest. The mark pulsed faintly under his uniform, as if it had merged with his heartbeat. What have you done? He whispered. Syraxa turned toward him, her expression unreadable. I have ended the war, she said softly, by making me your husband? Ethan's voice cracked, half disbelief, half fear. She looked away, her golden eyes dim. The galaxy only respects power, and now, you are bound to mine, he stared at her, anger rising. You didn't ask me. She looked at him, her tone sharp. Would you have said yes? He paused and she smiled bitterly. Exactly. Outside, explosions lit the void. The human and Valthar fleet still exchanged fire. Ethan stepped closer to her. You can stop this, Syraxa. I already have, she said, turning to the comm officer. Send the surrender signal, her soldiers gasped. My lady. You can't. I can, she snapped. He is my bondmate. His people are under my protection. The command hall went deathly silent. A war goddess had never spoken such words before. To protect a weaker race was shameful in Valthar culture, and yet Syraxis said it without hesitation. The human fleet paused their attack. The message echoed through every channel. Cease fire. The war goddess has declared the human race under her protection. Admiral Rhodes clenched his jaw. Protection? Or ownership? But deep in his heart he knew something far bigger had begun. Later, in Syrax's private chamber, the air was quiet again. Ethan sat alone. Staring at the faint blue glow of the mark on his chest, he felt dizzy. Part of him terrified. Part of him drawn towards something he didn't understand. When Syraxa entered, he didn't look up. "So," he said, "what happens now?" She walked slowly toward him, removing her armor once more. "Now," she said, "we wait for the galaxy to decide if it will burn." He looked at her. "You just made every empire furious," her lips curved faintly. "Let them be angry." "I've faced empires before," he frowned. "You risked everything for me, why?" Her eyes softened. "Because I saw something in you that none of my kind have." "Ethan, mercy." Before he could respond, the ship's alarms blared again. An officer's voice shouted through the comm. "Unknown vessels approaching, the multiple signatures, the not human, not Valthar." Syraxa's eyes widened. "The neutral syndicate," she whispered. Ethan blinked. "Who?" "The scavengers of dead wars," she said grimly. "They smell weakness and they've come to claim what's left." Outside the window, hundreds of black ships emerged from the shadows. Sleek, fast, and armed, their insignia a burning spiral of ash. The syndicate didn't follow any empire. They served only chaos. Syraxa rushed to the bridge, Ethan following behind. The officers stood frozen in panic. "They're jamming communications," one shouted. "We can't call for backup." Ethan's voice cut through the chaos. "They're pirates. They'll target your reactors first." Syraxa nodded. "Then we'll give them a reason to fear." She turned to him. "You to stay behind me." Ethan smirked despite the danger. "You realize that's the first time you've said that, and I might actually listen." She shot him a glare. "Good. Then stay alive." The syndicate ships opened fire. Flashes of red tore through the void, hammering against Syraxa's shields. Her fleet returned fire, but they were outnumbered 10-1. The ship shook violently and alarms screamed. A console exploded nearby. Ethan ducked, smoke filling the air. "Shields down to 40%. A soldier yelled. Syraxa gritted her teeth. "Prepare the Nova Lance." "But, my lady, it will destroy half our fleet." "Then it will destroy them first," she growled. Ethan grabbed her arm. "No, and if you do that, everyone dies." Her voice snapped like thunder. "Then give me another option." Ethan's mind raced. He looked at the power core's schematic flashing on the screen. "If we overload the secondary grid manually, it'll create a shock pulse strong enough to disable their front line." Syraxa frowned. "You'll die if it fails." He gave a crooked grin. "You claimed me, remember? Death's part of the deal." Her jaw tightened. "You infuriating human." He winked. "You love it." Before she could stop him, Ethan dashed toward the reactor room. The corridors were filled with fire and smoke. Soldiers shouted as systems failed one by one. Ethan's hand trembled as he activated the power controls. "Manual override engaged," he whispered. "Let's hope this works." Syraxa's voice echoed over the comm. "Ethan, you have 60 seconds. The syndicate is charging their main cannon." He took a deep breath, sweat dripping down his face. "Then tell the galaxy," he said softly, "that a human just saved their goddess." And with that, he slammed the final lever. A blinding blue surge ripped through space. The Valthar flagship glowed like a newborn star. The shockwave tore through the syndicate fleet. Their ship spun, systems collapsing. Engines dead for a brief shining moment, silence. Then the ship's systems flickered back online. Syraxa gasped. "He did it. He actually did it." She rushed toward the reactor chamber. Smoke and sparks filled the air. And in the center, lying unconscious but alive, was Ethan. The mark on his chest glowed brighter than ever. Syraxa knelt beside him, her hands trembling. "Foolish brave." "Impossible human," she whispered. Her voice breaking, she touched his face gently, her golden eyes soft for the first time in centuries. "You may have saved us, but now the galaxy will never let you go." Outside, the wreckage of the syndicate fleet drifted across the stars. The message was clear. A new power had been born. Not human, not alien, but something in between. A bond that defied empires, laws, and gods. And somewhere in the deep silence between worlds, the galaxy began to whisper once more. The war goddess has chosen, and her human lives. Ethan's eyes opened slowly, his vision blurred by smoke and light. The last thing he remembered was pulling the lever, the blinding flash, and Syraxa's voice calling his name. Now he lay in the medical chamber, surrounded by alien technology humming softly around him. Syraxa stood nearby, silent, her golden armor cracked and scorched. When she saw him move, her face softened in relief. "You stubborn creature," she whispered. "You almost died." Ethan's voice was weak. "Almost doesn't count," she laughed and softly, but her eyes were full of tears she didn't want to show. Days passed, but peace did not follow. The destruction of the syndicate had only awakened the galaxy's fury. Empires that once feared the Valthar now saw weakness. The humans, too, were divided. Half saw Ethan as a hero, half as a traitor, and through it all, whispers spread that the bond between a human and a goddess had changed fate itself. On the bridge, the Valthar Council appeared through a projection, their voices sharp and cold. "Syraxa of the 7th Legion," they declared. "You have violated the ancient law. You claimed an outsider, a lesser being. You have brought shame to our kind." Syraxa stood tall, her presence unbroken. "I brought survival," she said calmly. But the Council's voice thundered, "Then survive without us." And in an instant, the connection cut off. She was exiled, stripped of her rank, her fleet reduced to fragments. Ethan watched her in silence. "You lost everything because of me," he said quietly. She turned to him. "No, Ethan. I lost nothing worth keeping." Her voice trembled slightly. "My people follow rules that kill mercy. You reminded me why I once fought. Not for glory, but for life." Ethan stepped closer. "Then we fight together." Her golden eyes met his. "You would fight the galaxy for me?" He smiled faintly. "I already am." The human fleet arrived days later, Admiral Rhodes himself leading it. Thousands of Terran ships surrounded the Valthar flagship. Weapons armed, a message came through. "This is Admiral Rhodes. By order of the Terran High Command, Ethan Cole. You are under arrest for treason." Ethan stared at the screen, stunned. "Treason?" he whispered. Rhodes's voice was cold. "You bonded with the enemy. You brought alien control into human networks. You compromised Earth's safety." Syraxa stepped forward, her voice sharp. "He saved your species," Rhodes glared. "Stay out of human affairs." "Monster!" Before Ethan could stop her, Syraxa's aura flared. The ship trembled as her eyes blazed like suns. "You dare speak to me like that," she thundered. The comms cut instantly. The humans opened fire, the stars erupted into chaos. Valthar and Terran ships collided in blinding storms of light. Ethan shouted, "Syraxa, stop! You'll kill them all!" But she was beyond hearing. Rage and heartbreak fueled her every move. Her energy waves tore through the void, shattering entire ships. Then a blast struck their flagship directly. The hull cracked, fire burst through the corridors. Ethan grabbed her arm. "We need to leave." She shook her head. "No, I end this here." He turned her to face him. "Syraxa," he said firmly, "you told me mercy was strength. Prove it." Her breath caught, the glow in her eyes flickered, and then slowly she lowered her weapon. But the battle was already lost. The human fleet surrounded them. Admiral Rhodes' voice echoed, "Surrender, or we end you both." Syraxa looked at Ethan one last time. "There's only one way to stop this," she whispered. He shook his head. "Don't you dare." She smiled faintly. "You always forget I'm a goddess, not a prisoner." Before he could move, she placed her hand on his chest. The glowing mark pulsed violently. "What are you doing?" he cried. "Transferring my energy to you," she said. "You'll survive. They'll need you." He tried to push her away. "No, Syraxa, please." Her eyes shimmered with light and sadness. "You showed me humanity," she whispered. "Now let me return it." The mark on his chest flared like a star. Her body began to dissolve into radiant energy, her voice fading. "Ethan Cole of Earth," she whispered. "Remember me not as a goddess of war, but as the woman who chose peace." Then she was gone. Her energy spread across the sky, a wave of pure light that silenced every weapon, every fleet, every war. For a moment the galaxy stood still, every ship, every soldier, human and alien alike, stared at the light dancing across the void. And they knew a goddess had fallen, and not in rage, but in love. Ethan collapsed to his knees, the mark on his chest now faint and still. He felt her presence fade, but her voice lingered in his heart like a whisper carried by stars. "Live for both of us," she said. When the light faded, the war ended. No one fired again. The syndicate remnants vanished. The empires fell silent. And for the first time in centuries, the galaxy knew peace. Months later, Ethan stood on a quiet planet, the first shared colony between humans and Valthar. He looked at the sunrise, golden and calm. The mark on his chest glowed faintly. As if answering the light, he smiled sadly. "You kept your promise," he whispered. And somewhere in the wind, faint and warm, a familiar voice replied, "I always do." The stars above shimmered brighter that night, as if the universe itself bowed to the memory of a war goddess. And the legend spread across worlds, of the human who loved an alien goddess, and the bond that changed the fate of the galaxy forever.